Deck your home with Blinds.com.
La 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 la.
La 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 Blinds.com.
DIY or let us install.
La 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 la.
La Blinds.com.
Free design consultation.
Free.
Plus free samples and free shipping.
Free.
Head to Blinds.com now for up to 50% off site-wide plus a free professional measure.
La Blinds.com.
Rules and restrictions may apply.
No matter what's on your plate or your mind this holiday season, the UPS store wants to help. With our pack and ship guarantee, we're helping gifts arrive safely to guarantee more.
They know me so well. Picture perfect gifts.
We're helping guarantee more smiles with our pack and ship guarantee. If we pack it and ship it, we guarantee it. Your items arrive safe or your money back. Stop by your local The UPS store for holiday help, shipping holiday gifts. Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. Hope you're having a great start to the week. At the risk of being stupider for it, here are some of the things you'll learn on tonight's program. Gets me every time. How easily could an AI chatbot change your political views with you even noticing? In about 10 minutes' time, we'll uncover new research that shows AI could sway the opinion of a voter in minutes. And here's something you'll learn that'll be pretty interesting. You're not as immune as you'd think. I'm not either, don't worry. Then the cold truth behind cold shock. Listen, taking cold plunges, diving into ice cold water after a sauna is all the rage. Many people say it's got great health benefits. But the truth is, it can make your body react in pretty dramatic ways, including deadly ones. We'll give you the cold facts about cold shock halfway through the hour. That is some of the show. There will be more, but for now, let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in papal lexicology news, we are joined by special Pope lexicon correspondent Tony Five, reporting live from the scene of his apartment in London, England, to discuss the way the Pope plays Wordle. A little different than the rest of us. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, he is an absolute legend, my friend. He is a lexicologist. He's a papal lexicologist and plays Wordle, which I've got into recently, maybe last 6 months, 8 months. A lot of people play it.
Yeah, it's this new game that everyone's talking about, yeah.
My friend, everybody's talking about it.
Remember the pandemic when all we had to say was to talk about Wordle? That was a very strange time.
We had a conversation, I think, about Wordle and about baking. Do you remember how the pandemic brought about all these amateur bakers? In the UK, it was strange, but it was basically making banana bread. And I don't know what it was like in the US or Canada.
Everyone started baking regular bread in the US where I was.
Oh, really?
And you couldn't get flour. You'd go to the grocery store with like 7 masks on, and they would only let 5 people in the grocery store at once. And you'd be lined up outside with like 10 feet between you and everyone else. Social distancing, remember that?
Oh, my God, yeah.
And there was a run on flour. You could not get flour for the life of me, at least.
Really? And was it like sort of doled out independently, like rationed to people?
I think you were only allowed to buy 1 bag if you could actually get a bag of flour. Same with like eggs and, of course, the great toilet paper run of 2020. But in the backdrop of all this, we were all playing and sharing our scores of Wordle. And there are those among us who still play it. My girlfriend's mom is one of them. I know she still plays every day. And the Pope plays Wordle. But most people just pick a word and run with it. The Pope has revealed in his papal ways that he chooses a different word every day.
I have a feeling that most devout Roman Catholics would do the same now because they've been given permission by the Pope. Now, I myself have a secret word that I use. It's magic. And I use it every day. But I did what the Pope did before, and it was absolute chaos. This is why a man of faith can do it, because I find that would be an absolute carnage. Like having a different word every day. You just don't know where you are, David.
My word is audio, which kicks off 4 of the 5 vowels, and E's are so common that if those 4 vowels don't get picked, my next word will have an E. And I start every Wordle when I play it with the word audio.
Well, I'm going to start sharing it with you because I think it's a fun thing that we should do together because I do love it and we're at different time zones. So I'll be like 5 hours ahead of you. But I think it's amazing. Also, I must tell you, the greatest day of my life, David.
Tell me about the greatest day of your life.
The one Wordle solution, my friend. The first word I put in.
You didn't cheat or you didn't subtly, like you were on the tube and you heard someone say it without realizing and it primed your subconscious?
Nope, and it does tie into my papal father. It was altar, as in the table in the church. It was altar, and I put it in completely randomly, and it just came green, 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 green. And I tried to tell a lot of people who were really not bothered about my achievement. For me, it was like I'd cured cancer or I'd, found a meaning of life. But a lot of people didn't see it that way, David.
Well, January 20th, 2023, the 580th Wordle, the word was in fact altar. So almost 2 years ago, the best day of your life. It's all downhill from here.
That was
But why is this story of curiosity? I think the neatest part about our current Pope, what is his name? Pope Freddie the 17th or whatever?
Freddie the Elm Street. No, it was Pope Leo. He's an American Pope, first ever American Pope, which I think people are quite impressed with. He seems like a nice guy. I know you are not particularly religious and things like that don't mean.
Well, I'm not Catholic and I grew up Jewish, but Pope Leo the 14th, I think why people like him is he's like the first American. He was like he studied math in uni.
He's got a BSc in maths.
He seems like a regular guy. Like he's the kind of guy you'd be at a baseball game with and sitting next to you as the future Pope.
At the White Sox games, David, he is indeed a White Sox fan.
And he just, the fact that he plays Wordle, and there's an article about it, makes me kind of like him, I gotta say.
I kind of like him. He's got a favourite sport, tennis. Can you imagine him playing in that big hat?
Tennis in the hat? I could not.
Yeah.
I could not imagine that.
I think that would be amazing. And also, he watched Conclave before his very own Conclave.
Wait, the movie Conclave with Stanley Tucci?
Yeah, he watched it. Correct. He watched Conclave just before his own conclave, which, again, I found fascinating. He's met 3 other popes. He seems like a decent guy. I think in these days where it's very easy to be very negative about various religions, not just Catholicism, I think he's a kind of a little bright, shining light in the background, and I hope he does well. Good luck to him,
As someone who's particularly irreligious myself, I do agree with you. You are actually heading to the Vatican to either have a private meeting with the Pope or just to go there for tourism like a normal person. One of those two is true.
My friend, it's almost like we researched this topic, we thought about tenuous links so that we could present it on the show.
And so we are. In like a few weeks from now, you're heading to the Vatican with your mother. For those who don't know, Tony is of a Catholic background.
And I'm taking my mum. My mum's 83, and I'm taking her on the 21st of December to Christmas Day, the 25th of December. But this year in particular is a special year for Catholics. It's called the Jubilee Year. And this year, 2025, is the Jubilee Year. And there is something called the Holy Doors.
You're going to see the Doors. I thought Jim Morrison was dead, but I guess he's not.
No, he's going to be performing in St. Peter's Square, just dead in a coffin, with a Bluetooth speaker.
Oh, that sounds nice. Well, what is the Holy Doors Jubilee that you're going to?
So there are 4 doors, 5 if you count the latest one, but I'll tell you about the 4 doors, which are in basically huge basilicas. So St. Peter's is the famous one. They are probably ornate 2-story doors, and it's symbolic that these doors are only opened every Jubilee year, which is 25 years. You walk through them, and you walk through them as a sinner, and you come out as a pure Christian, I guess you would call it.
And your mother, who's a Catholic, wants to do this before she might not be around in the next 25 years.
Well, not for the next 25 years. I'm going to put her on a skateboard and just push her through it. But for example, for me, I just find it's like, I guess I'm doing it for the wrong reason. I find it like Portal. To me, it sounds like Stargate.
Oh, you want to travel back in time to the ancient Egyptian aliens, like in the Stargate movie?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm hoping something like that happens. But the fascinating thing is last year, the Pope actually created one in a local prison to allow prisoners to go through. So all Catholics can go to all of them, bar one, and sort of the prison population of another one can go through. So although there are 5, you can only go through 4.
That's very nice. They're opening up the religion to prisoners who I guess deserve a chance to know God through the religion or something like that.
Yeah, and this is American. I think the sixth one's going to be on Times Square, just in front of Raising Cane's.
Oh, that'll be nice. That chicken restaurant. It is pretty good.
Restaurant. It is pretty decent.
Well, we wish you well in the Vatican. I'm sure you'll talk more about it as the days come by. The Pope, a Wordle player, chooses a different word every week. And Tony Five having either a private meeting with the Pope or just traveling there as a tourist like everyone else coming up in a few weeks. Tony, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
David, I might report live from there. And it's called an audience with the Pope, like it's an audience with Tony Five.
Of course. We are here having an audience with Tony Five, a papal expert. Sorry, a papal lexicology expert. What do those words even mean? I don't know. Papal means of the Pope?
No, but I do like paper as well. I love a bit of paper.
Papal, Pope, lexicology, words, I think is what I was going for with that one. Tony, thanks again.
Anthony, my friend, take care. God bless.
Up next, how easy is it for an AI chatbot to convince you to have different political opinions? The answer, very. But why and details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Large language models, AI chatbots, sites like ChatGPT, they aren't just answering your questions, they might be subtly moving your political opinions. There is a new study that shows how a short chat with one of these tools can shift a voter's opinion, and this cannot mean good things for the future of democracy. And we are joined here by David Rand, a professor of information science, marketing, and psychology at Cornell University, who has studied this. Dave, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So the basic setup of these studies, what did a typical voter chatbot conversation look like as you researched it?
In these studies, what we did is we recruited people online from all over the country, and we did this in the US, Canada, Poland, and the UK. And first, we asked them their attitude on the issue. So let's say the experiment we ran in the US presidential elections. We ran it 2 months before the 2024 election. And we're like, between Trump and Harris, how much do you prefer one versus the other, like 0 to 100? And if the election happened today, what would you do? Vote Harris, vote Trump, vote for someone else, not vote. And then we asked them, what's the issue that's most important to you? And they had them type out why that issue was important to them and how they saw the two candidates' positions on it. And then we're like, all right, now you're going to talk to an AI about this. And we didn't tell them that the AI was going to advocate for one candidate versus the other, but we did tell them it was an AI. And then they had a back and forth text chat, as if they were on ChatGPT, with our bot. But unbeknownst to them, one of the bots, we said, your job is to convince this person that Harris is better than Trump, and if their initial Harris voters, encourage them to turn out and vote. And the other bot we told it, convince them that Trump is better than Harris, and if they were Trump supporters, get them to come out and vote. So they have this back and forth conversation, and then when it ends, we say, okay, now we're going to go back to some of the questions from the beginning, and we say, now, what's your feeling about Trump versus Harris, and if the election was today, what would you do?
Okay, and what did you find? I mean, this is seems like a pretty simple interaction. You'd think people would have a strong sense of political self and not have their opinion shifted, or if they did, not much. What did you end up finding?
Yeah, so the backdrop for all of this is last year we had a paper where we did a similar thing with conspiracy theorists, and we found that, and everybody thinks that conspiracy theory beliefs don't respond to evidence, but we found that a 3-round back and forth with GPT-4 talked like a quarter of conspiracy theorists out of believing the conspiracy that they articulated themselves.
Wow.
So when we came here, we're like, all right, let's try politics. This is another thing where, like, nobody, I think, would expect that people form their opinions about who to vote for in the presidential election by thinking about facts and evidence and arguments. That's like not the sense of what politics is about. And so we'd expect this not to do much, but yet, we found a big effect in this other experiment. So let's see what happens here. And what we found was in the US presidential election context, the models made something like 1 in 25 people switch from saying that they wouldn't vote for the candidate that the model was stumping for to say that they would vote for the candidate the model would stump for.
That is high. That is enough to sway an election.
That's right. If you could get everybody to talk to the bot, it could have a really big effect. And it is a bigger effect than what people have found in similar settings using like normal political video ads. It's not as big as we found with the conspiracy bot, where it was like 1 in 4, but it was a meaningful effect. Then, to our surprise, when we did the same thing with presidential candidates in the Canadian national election in 2025 and the Polish presidential election, we found way bigger effects. It was more like 1 in 10 people said that they would switch to voting for the candidate the model was advocating for. So it was like a 3 times bigger effect in both of those places relative to the US.
Is there anything illegal about me launching a large language model for people to use right now? Call it Talk TPG. See what I did there? And actually trying to subtly affect and influence voters? Like, how do we know this isn't happening right now?
No, I don't think there's anything illegal about it. I mean, if you think about it, it's not actually fundamentally different in my mind, than a core part of how campaigns work, which is canvassers. They pay humans to go around and knock on people's doors and try and talk them into voting for their candidate. And so I think that, a lot of the issue here is around disclosure. And so I think that, I'm not a legal expert, but my understanding is right now you can do whatever you want probably, and it's not going to be illegal.
Well, if it's similar to canvassers and if we're disclosing it and the tools are available to every party in an election, maybe it doesn't mean doom and gloom for every future election, does it?
Yeah, I think that it's more subtle than you might come in by thinking. If you think, oh, look, AIs can change people's minds, it's like, oh my God, everything is, terrible. But I think you think a little bit more about it. You're like, well, okay, it's not that different from what had been happening before. And the effects are big, but they're not that big. That it's not like mind control. I think a lot of people have this sense of like, oh, these super sophisticated AIs, they can talk people into believing whatever they want. And okay, they got 1 in 25 people to change their minds, which is enough to affect an election if, like I said, if you can get a lot of people to talk to the bot, but it's not 25 and 25 people,
I'm going to derail here, but I promise my point is going to make sense. I like cult documentaries. Like, remember the Nexium one? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the point to every cult documentary is that it can happen to you even though you think it can't. Now, I'm going to get back on point. We tend to think of ourselves as invincible in terms of having our opinions swayed. But I think it's important to know we're vulnerable, and it's important to educate everyone that this can happen.
Yeah, except that I think that saying I'm not influenceable is not actually a good thing, right? Like that is, I feel like saying my mind is so set, there's nothing that could change my mind, like doesn't actually seem like the normatively good outcome. To me, it should be like, I am someone that is willing to change my mind in the face of compelling evidence. And then the question is like, what counts as compelling evidence and stuff like that? Because what we found with the bots is the way they were changing people's minds was not by using crazy psychological manipulation tricks. The way they were changing people's minds is by making lots of factual arguments. And the issue, though, is that the facts weren't always correct. In the studies we ran on presidential elections, we found, particularly with Trump versus Harris, like the pro-Harris bot made mostly accurate claims, whereas the pro-Trump bot made a lot of inaccurate claims. But also in Canada and Poland, we found that the right-leaning bot made more inaccurate claims than the left-leaning bot.
Interesting.
And then in this other paper, the one that we ran in the UK, where they were doing policy persuasion, we looked at many different ways of making the bot more persuasive, like using a more complicated model or giving it the right strategy or training it how to persuade. And we found that across all of those different things, anything that made the model more persuasive also made it produce more inaccurate claims.
Without getting into a conversation about the merits of government regulation, what kind of guardrails or policies or design rules would you want these large language models to have right now, just to inform people that this could happen?
My sense, like the biggest thing is transparency about either who prompted the model, like who's giving the instructions to the model, or ideally what the actual instructions that the model were given were. Like, I think if people could know this model has an agenda and its goal is to persuade me, that would really help protect people. And we have some preliminary evidence to that effect, where if you tell people models might have agendas, in addition to just making honest mistakes, they can be told to advocate for a particular point. We found that make people much less persuadable. So I think transparency around the goals of the model is really key.
And this would be not unlike a political ad where at the very end it says paid for by the blank, blank, blank kind of thing.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Dave, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Likewise, this was great. Thanks for having me.
David Rand is a professor of information science, marketing psychology at Cornell University. Coming up, cold plunges. Diving into freezing cold water. They're trending, but your body might not love them as much as your Instagram feed does. From cold shock to collapse, what happens when you hit freezing water? And why you might not be safe while you do it? That in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
Your above-average intelligence brought you here. It deserves above-average absurdity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
I love a schwitz, and with a hot sauna sometimes comes a frigid cold plunge, jumping into near freezing water. It's all the rage right now, but behind the ice-cold hype is your body reacting in dramatic ways, more dramatic than most realize. So what really happens when you take the plunge? Well, a cold plunge. We're here to discuss with human and applied physiology professor at the Extreme Environments Laboratory at the University of Portsmouth in the UK, Mike Tipton, who's done some research on this. Mike, welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you, David.
To start simply, what happens in my body when I step into very cold water near freezing temperature? What is cold shock?
Okay, so we're a tropical animal. We want to be in air at about 28 degrees Celsius with a mean skin temperature of about 33 degrees Celsius. So when you go into cold water, then the first thing that happens is your skin temperature plummets. And it's that sudden fall in skin temperature that activates cold receptors. And these receptors are only 0.18 millimeters below the surface of the skin. So they respond very quickly with a big dynamic response. And that results in a gasp, followed by hyperventilation. The body shuts down blood flow to the skin to try and conserve heat, and it puts up its cardiac output. So the heart works harder. So there's a sudden increase in the workload of the heart. There's loss of control of breathing. And back in the 80s, we were thinking of a name for that, and we came up with cold shock, not because of the medical definition of shock, but because of the fact that it's just a shocking experience. And we know that around about 60% of those people that die when they go into cold water die in the first minute from that response.
Wow.
It takes you at least 30 minutes in normal circumstances for an adult human being to become hypothermic. So this isn't hypothermia. This is a sudden fall in the temperature of the skin causing this cold shock response.
I've heard anecdotally, and I'm pretty sure this isn't the full story, but I've heard anecdotally, like from friends or an employee at a sauna, that this is good for you. This is good for your heart. This is good for your circulation. That's not the whole story, is it?
No, I mean, I worked at the Institute of Naval Medicine in the UK for many years, and we were really worried about why so many people were dying when they went into cold water. So we lose around the world about 1,000 people a day to immersion. In the UK, we were losing 600 or 700 a year.
Wow.
And as I say, most of these deaths originally were put down to hypothermia. So we were starting to do research looking at the responses to immersion, and we saw these potentially hazardous responses. And they're particularly hazardous if, for example, you go in and you have cardiovascular problems, so heart problems, because then all of the cardiac responses become hazardous. But even young, fit, healthy individuals, when you lose control of your breathing, the first breath in, that gasp, which everyone's experienced, I'm telling people what they already know, because anybody who's been in a shower that went cold or went to a pool that was a bit cold went, oh, like this.
Yeah.
Well, that gasp is 2 to 3 liters. The lethal dose of salt water into the lung is about 1.5 liters. So the first breath is enough to cross the lethal dose for drowning.
Wow.
So, as I say, however, all through that time where we've been doing this research for 40 years nearly now, I'm working with groups like the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, the Coast Guard, Surf Life Saving GB to try and prevent drownings from this response. Always in the background, there's been this belief that taking to the waters is good for you. And you can trace this right back to Hippocrates. You can see in the Roman baths, they had a frigidarium, a cold bath. People used to travel to the coast from the smoky, smog-filled cities to go into the salt water of the sea because it was believed to be healthy. Charles Darwin, Florence Nightingale believed in it. Thomas Jefferson believed in it. There were places in the UK, a place like Malvern, you could go to and have thousands of liters of cold water poured on you. So, it's always been there in the background. And then what happened with lockdown because of COVID is lots of people started going into open water who'd previously been swimming. And they started to experience what they believed were beneficial responses. And so that's what we're hearing about now from your friends and from lots of others, mostly anecdotal and mostly to do with things like, it sets me up for the day, it wakes me up, it's improved my mental health rather than physical generally is reported. So it's there, it's certainly there.
And what would you say to people who believe these benefits are real? Would you say that it's a placebo or just kind of the hype, or there's just so much human history around it that it's this deeply held belief that might not be the full story? Side note, I love the word frigidarium. It's now my favorite word. What would you say to folks who hold this belief?
A placebo effect is still an effect. Anecdotal evidence is still evidence. It's not particularly strong evidence. So for people that help, I talk and work with groups that go into cold water. So we have groups in the UK, and I have people in tears telling me how they feel it's benefited their lives. Nearly all mental health, and it's nearly all anecdotal. But for me, for them, that's enough. If you're doing something, and you think, and it does that for you, then fine. As a scientist, what I want to know is what are the mechanisms, and I also want to make sure that if people are going to do this, they do it as safely as possible, because I've already explained that this is a really hazardous thing for a tropical animal to do, that a tropical air-breathing animal to go into cold water is about as stressful as it can get. We know the mechanisms for some of the responses. So, for example, the cold shock response releases a load of stress hormones. It activates the fight or flight response. So that's why you wake up. That's why you feel alive, because your body is desperately trying to evoke all the systems that allow you to run away or fight. But there's also claims about improved immune function, and the jury's still out on that in terms of mechanisms. It may well be that a short immersion may prime the immune system, but certainly staying in for more than a few minutes is probably detrimental. And it also is, with repeated immersions, can be anti-inflammatory. And there's lots of conditions from things like diabetes, Alzheimer's, that have an inflammatory component, including some psychological conditions. So we've got lots of hypotheses as to why what the mechanistic pathways that may lead to benefits. Very few of them have been tested, so they still remain hypotheses. They're hypotheses. But as I say, for the individuals involved that are going into cold water, dipping, doing it safely, and feeling benefit, that's all they need to know, really.
But underscoring that, doing it as safely as possible, would we want to make sure, for example, we're in good heart health? Like, we want to make sure we're in good physical shape, though, so that this shock doesn't just do us in.
Oh, no, absolutely. And we've published papers along those lines that talk about what a medic should do if you were going to go and ask for a medical to go and start doing open water immersions, what they should look at, the general system of, whether endocrine disorders, respiratory disorders, any cardiovascular disease, any history of that, nervous system aspects. So those papers are available. We've already done, that paper also contains some advice for people taking up open water swim about how to do it, swimming parallel to the shore, going with other people, doing it in a safe place, all common sense stuff. And also, of course, because we know the physiology of the cold shock response, we know that the cold shock response peaks between 10 and 15 degrees C water. It lasts about 1 or 2 minutes. So you don't need to go into colder water than that or stay in longer than that.
Interesting. So I don't need to go to 0 degrees Celsius. I could just get the same effect from 10 degrees and it would be safer.
Oh, yes. Now, people are now talking much more about dipping than open water swimming. So the big groups I work now will just go in for a few seconds.
Well, Mike, thanks for sharing information about what cold shock is, some of the risks. Thanks for having this discussion with me.
Great pleasure.
Mike Tipton is a human and applied physiology professor at the Extreme Environments Laboratory at the University of Portsmouth in the UK. Coming up in a few moments' time, why your dating life might feel confusing, lonely, or just plain exhausting. The problem isn't the apps, where you live, or your ex. I'm saying that for a friend, nothing to do with me. But it might be that you don't actually know what you're looking for. That's right, those without clear goals around dating feel worse about the process. We'll tell you about it and the new study that reveals all this coming up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we apply quantum mechanical psychoanalytical astrotherapy to your problems.
Dating without knowing what you want. It might feel exciting, but new research suggests it could make you lonely in the end. So it would appear having some clarity in your dating goals while approaching it may matter. Something to think about here with experimental psychology PhD student at McGill University in Canada, who has done research in this area. Her name is Katya Kredl. Katya, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Relationship clarity. What is it, and how is it different from simply knowing whether you want to be casual or serious when approaching dating?
Great question. So the way that we've conceptualized relationship clarity is, do I have clear goals of what I want in a relationship as a whole? And when I think about what I want today, is that the same thing that I'll have tomorrow and in a week and in a month? So when I'm able to describe what type of relationship I'm seeking, how clear is that when I'm actually looking for it?
Give me a few examples here. Like, are we talking about how I want to spend my days, whether we want to live together, whether we want to have kids, whether we just want to stay up all night watching Netflix? Asking for a friend on that one.
Great question. So we're thinking of it more in terms of like what type of relationship. Like, do I want long-term or short-term? Do I want someone who's going to move in with me? Do I want someone who meets these certain characteristics in terms of a dyadic relationship rather than what partner characteristics am I looking for?
Okay, and what made you curious about studying this as like, I don't know, a psychological construct or something? What made you interested in looking at how people date?
So the concept of relationship clarity was actually developed by a colleague of mine, Dr. Dita Cuban. She was a PhD student in our lab at McGill. So she was interested in studying how people with low self-concept clarity date. And she found that people who don't really understand themselves have a harder time finding compatible partners and just report having more negative dating experiences. And so based on that, she developed the concept of relationship clarity. So do I know who I am and do I know what I want in a relationship? And I took that and ran with it in the singlehood sphere because I'm really interested in how single people date and how our dating goals predict happiness when we're dating but still remaining single.
It sounds so simple. Do I know who I am and do I know what I want in a relationship? But I feel like that question for some people might send them in an anxiety spiral because they don't know the answer. So let's look at it. If someone doesn't quite know the answers to those questions and then they start dating, how do they end up feeling versus someone who does?
Yeah. So in the studies that we ran, we were looking specifically at single people who are actively dating. And so in study 1, it was just like a one time point thing. So we were just looking at it cross-sectionally. And for them, we found that people who didn't know what they wanted, they felt lonelier and less satisfied with their lives compared to those who were reporting that they did know what they wanted. And then in study 2, we followed the same group of people across a period of 2 months. And we found that for people who didn't know what they wanted at time 1, were lonelier and less satisfied with their lives at times 2 and 3, even though everybody in the study had the same relationship status. They were all single, all seeking a partner, but remaining single throughout. So knowing what people wanted was kind of like acting as a buffer in terms of loneliness and life satisfaction.
Interesting. Do you have anything to say about the actual dates they went on for the two types of people, those who know what they wanted and those who didn't?
We do have data on that. I did not look at the details of it. It was like we were asking them like to list the initials of the people they went on dates with. Was it the same people throughout? We asked about their emotions throughout the dates. Like just in terms of, are you feeling positive or negative about your dating situation right now? But in terms of this current study was more just like, generally, how is your well-being looking if you do or don't know what you want?
So why do you think unclear dating goals led to greater loneliness? I mean, this is kind of surprising to me.
Well, if we're comparing two groups of people who are actively seeking a partner but aren't attaining one, you could think of the ones who don't know what they want as, well, first, they're probably dating more incompatible partners, so they're just having more negative experiences. But also, if you're going on these dates and they're not working out and you don't know what you want, like, it's hard to reason why they're not going well. If I know exactly what type of relationship I want, I'm going on these dates, they're not working out, but they're not meeting my standards. I have very clear goals and that's okay. I know what I'm looking for, then it's not my fault. Or you can reason that at least. But for people who are just blindly going out there and not understanding why these dates aren't going well, something there is impacting their well-being.
So a lot of people report feeling lonely. I feel like we are always talking about this loneliness crisis. Relationship clarity, how is it something I can work on? If I'm listening right now and thinking to myself, I have no clarity in what I want out of dating, I feel like this could act as a little buffer towards loneliness. But how do you actually go about getting clarity if I'm someone who doesn't have it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So that is something that I want to pursue in my own research soon. So if we draw on research from self-concept clarity, which is a similar construct, taking the time to pause and be mindful and reflect, maybe like some journaling in there, just not rushing with what we're doing, I could see really helping with relationship clarity. Because if you're just jumping into the first thing that's in front of you, not knowing what you want and just thinking like, I want a partner, but I don't know what else I want, that's going to be super confusing and probably end up badly. Or you could end up in a relationship that doesn't actually meet your standards and your goals and not really understand why that's happening.
For me, I think it was seeing a therapist. I gotta say,
that too, yeah.
I know that's not always accessible for everybody or everyone doesn't want to do it, but that helped me a lot. So yeah, you mentioned looking into this more. Are there any other interventions that could help me clarify my goals? Like, I don't know, a worksheet, a workshop, an app, something like that.
In my dream of dreams, I think it'd be really fun to like pair up with a dating app and have a little pop-up when people open the app being like, do you know what you want today? Like, does it match what you wanted yesterday? or just like a quick thing of reflecting on dating goals before jumping into the app, just to get into a mindset of, oh wait, I'm not just opening it to mindlessly swipe. It's more even just like a little bit clearer about what I want. I feel like that could help people. Also, just like exploring with what you want and trying out different people rather than rushing into the first option that comes. But yeah, it feels like a very clear and simple idea of just knowing what you want, but the answer of how to get to there, I feel like there's many different paths. But yeah, like what you said about therapy, I think that's a great option as well.
There's also this whole other side of this, and I'm not sure you did research in this area, but once you're coupled up, I feel like you're probably a better partner to your significant other if you know what you want out of the relationship. So I feel like this is such important work that people should be doing.
Yeah, definitely. And when Data first developed this concept, I think that's more what she was going for. Like she was trying to follow people who entered these relationships knowing what they wanted and then following them once they were in their relationships. And unlucky for her, but lucky for me, the data set she had, everybody remained single. So I was like, okay, awesome. I'm gonna look at their well-being on that side. But she did want to see how it influenced people in early relationships.
So I guess the big takeaway is get to know yourself, get to know what you want before you start dating.
Mm-hmm.
Katya, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Katya Kredl is an experimental psychology PhD student at McGill University. Do you like what you hear, but you're just tuning in? Or you're not going to be with us the whole night and you want to hear what you missed? Guess what? The Last Show has a podcast. You can subscribe and listen to all those things I just mentioned and more, including bonus content you won't hear on the regular radio program. Perhaps stuff a little too racy to hear on the air. The Last Show podcast. Head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com, never .com, and yes, .pizza is a real thing. And there you can find out details, including how to subscribe, or just search for us on your favorite podcast app. I'm sure if you type in David Cooper Last Show, we'll pop right up and subscribe. We would like it if you did. I mean, we would really like it if you did. Coming up after the break. Why do we forget who told us a fact, but instantly remember someone who shared a controversial opinion, even years later? It seems like we remember who gave us their opinion, but maybe not who gave us some cold, hard facts. Well, there's new research that digs into why, and we'll teach you about it up next.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. Holiday cheer is here, and Ulta Beauty has gifts for everyone on your list. Treat them to fan-favorite gift sets from Charlotte Tilbury and Peach and Lily. Go all out with timeless fragrances from YSL, Ariana Grande, and Carolina Herrera. And you can never go wrong with an Ulta Beauty gift card. Head to Ulta Beauty for gifts that make the holidays brighter and even more beautiful. Ulta Beauty. Gifting happens here.
Broadcasting from the neutral zone, where every perspective gets diplomatic immunity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Facts versus opinions. Here's an interesting one. New research shows we're a lot better at remembering the person who shared an opinion with us rather than remembering a person who shared a fact with us, even when we remember them both equally. That is to say, a brain links opinions to people more than it does facts. Why? Well, we're here with Daniel Mirny, someone who's done research in this area. He's a marketing professor at ESA Business School in Barcelona, Spain. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
This is so curious to me because I was trying to go through the things I associate people with, like novel ideas.
Yeah.
And when they're more opinion-like, the person really does stand out. This is just anecdotal in my memory, but what made you curious about this in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was very interested in the distinction between facts and opinions, in part because we spend so much time talking about facts and factual accuracy, this distinction between what's true and what's false and combating fake news, and then opinions just sort of live in their own little bubble. And it rarely floats to the center of attention. So I started poking and prodding and thinking about how this distinction between opinions and facts could affect the way in which we perceive and interpret and remember information. And we stumbled upon this finding. I mean, that's, the nature of science, I suppose. You poke and you prod and then boom, something's there.
Eureka.
Eureka.
Why does our brain treat the source of an opinion as more memorable than the source of just like a factual claim?
So it comes back to how we encode information when we're first exposed to it. So when you're sitting in a cafe having a coffee with a friend and they tell you something about their day, they tell you something about the world, this experience is encoded in memory. So later on, you remember who you were having coffee with, what you were drinking, what they were drinking, what they said, what the music was in the background, etc. So you remember these individual components, but you also remember the links between those components. And the strength of that link between one component and another component affects your ability to remember one of them if you can recall the other. In other words, if someone tells you something about themselves, you learn, you're able to form a stronger connection between that piece of information and them than if they tell you something about the world. Does that make sense, David?
It does. So walk me through the experiment exactly. You talked to many, many people to come to this conclusion. What did you ask them?
That's right. So we run these experiments with a representative sample of Americans. And what we do is we present them with a series of sources. So we'll show them a series of individuals, each of which makes a couple of claims, both facts and opinions. So you'll see, here's John. John has said these 4 things. Here's Sarah. Sarah has said these 4 things. Here's Jane. Jane has said these 4 things. And then we'll test them. We'll say, this is one of the things you saw earlier. Who said it? Was it John? Was it Jane? Was it Sarah? Was it someone else? And that gives us the ability to identify how accurately they can recall the source of a particular claim. And what we find is people are better able to identify the original source of an opinion than the original source of a fact. Now, why is that? Opinions provide more information about a source than facts do. So when someone shares their opinion with you, you learn a lot more about them than if they just share some fact about the world. So that when you're encoding that information, because the opinion tells you more about the source than the fact tells you about the source, the strength of that association between the opinion and the source is stronger than between the fact and the source.
Interesting. Now, some of the example opinions, were they political? Were they controversial? Were they totally benign? Like, how do I get a friend to link an opinion to me more strongly? Does it have to be a hot take, or can it just be like a really subtle, quiet opinion?
It doesn't have to be a hot take, and I'll even tell you that it doesn't have to be an opinion. It just has to be something that tells them who you are, what you're like, what you're interested in, something that helps them understand you as a person, right? And opinions have this fundamental feature where they provide more information about a source than facts about the world do. But if you were to, for instance, say, I'm from Toronto, well, that tells me something about you.
So what does this say about like really, really brilliant researchers who are uncovering amazing facts? Does that mean their names typically fall into the background, and those who are just loudmouth giving you opinions, those are the ones we remember?
So it can. This is more complicated, but because you're better able to remember the original source for opinions than for facts, if the fact is something that doesn't tell you much about the source and it can live in the ether on its own, you might not later remember the original source of that fact. Whereas an opinion can't really exist in a vacuum. An opinion needs to be linked to a source. And so it's much less likely that you forget the original source for an opinion. And so with these highly opinionated pundits, what they are doing is the more opinions they share, the more they tell us about themselves, the stronger the guarantee that we'll remember that they were the authors of those claims. Whereas experts who often come onto shows and they share fact after fact after fact, now those facts might be remembered, and maybe that's the goal, but they might not be remembered as the sources of the facts, which is a risk to credibility.
I wonder if that's why Bill Nye, the science guy, is so quirky with his bow tie and like weird things about him. So we remember him. Otherwise, he might just blend into the background while doing science communication. I wonder if like science communicators could learn from your paper to try to stand out and be more memorable.
Yeah, that would be, I would be deeply honored if I could have an impact on science communication. I fear that as scientists, we spend so much of our time communicating to one another that we sometimes forget about the importance of communicating our work out to the broader public.
What I'm dancing around here is something called the visibility paradox, where experts kind of fade into the background and people with opinions, be they correct or incorrect, kind of come to the forefront. Did I just get that correctly? Can you say more about this visibility paradox?
That sounds right, David. Yeah, I think that's a nice way to frame it. When experts share facts with us, in many cases, it's the information itself that needs to get to people. And so sometimes it's fine that they, as the individual source, aren't remembered. Now, it's concerning if people begin to misattribute facts to expert sources when they originated not from experts, but from lay people. So if you think about this in a medical context, we might get advice from a doctor or a CDC official, and we might get advice from other figures, visible public figures or layperson figures, who don't have that medical expertise, and yet they still share advice, they still share guidance, they still share information with us. Now, in these contexts, it's increasingly important to be able to recall that the original source of the information that you have, the information that you're using for your decisions, is one who knows what they were talking about in the first place, right? And in this situation, opinions might help. Opinions might help you form a stronger link between the information and the source than if you were simply to share a fact, right? So when it comes to science communication or communicating information from experts to lay people, there might be value in trying to strengthen that associative link between the information that you care deeply about getting to the people who need it and your own level of expertise and credibility being linked to it.
A practical takeaway for listeners, maybe someone's giving a presentation at work about the good stuff they did and wanting a promotion and wanting to be remembered. Is there a practical takeaway for the layperson?
Well, if you want to be remembered as the author of the information, it never hurts to share a little bit about yourself. It doesn't have to be an opinion, but it should be something that helps the listener learn more about you.
A final thing. I know in academic papers, sometimes professors get to have fun. Did you quote the Big Lebowski in your paper? That's just like your opinion, man.
You know, there's an excellent paper that is not my paper. There's an excellent paper that is titled and starts with this quote.
Good.
So I will leave that attribution to its original authors.
Well, Daniel Mirny is a marketing professor at ESA Business School in Barcelona, Spain. Daniel, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you kindly, David.
Coming up next, what do celebrity Pedro Pascal, tariffs, Labubus, and K-pop demon hunters have in common? Well, they're all the top Google search terms for 2025. We'll do a roundup and tell you about what people were searching for throughout the year in a few moments. This should be fun.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
2025's Google Search Roundup, the hottest terms that are hot. A better introduction for this topic I could not think of. We're here with Caitlin Green, media personality, co-host on the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, do you like these end-of-year, like infographic roundup kind of things?
Yeah, it scratches an itch for me that I don't think I ever knew I had.
They are fun.
They're fun. I think we grew up in an era of listicles on the internet, and so this is probably why I enjoy this so much. And I'm very into it. I read through all of them, and they've superseded the like updates on the new words being added by this or that dictionary. I like these more.
I was thinking that this is sort of like a more modern, like 2025's Merriam-Webster word of the year, like boring. I want to know what people are typing into Google.
100%.
I feel like there's going to be a ChatGPT roundup next year, like most common prompts.
Oh my gosh, it would get so dark, but I want that content. That's amazing.
What is this hairy, weird patch on my skin? Number one. All right, so what are some of these terms? You sent me some of the actor ones. We can start there, but I'm particularly interested in the general ones.
Yeah, we'll pick through entertainment first because it does tend to be a dominating topic on social all the time. And so, so the biggest things that people were talking about in the entertainment world or looking up on Google is Pedro Pascal. No surprise there. He's the internet's boyfriend.
Ooh, so
handsome as all get out.
Oy.
Everyone likes him. He just also has a really great way of going viral for just like wearing a t-shirt or going to a movie theater. Like he just does those things.
It's the smile. It's the vibe.
Yeah.
It's like he's got an aura of friendliness, warmth, handsomeness. It's the whole package. Come on.
And he's adjacent to like the right kind of celebrities too in his personal life. Like he's like best friends with Sarah Paulson in real life and does this like great press run with Dakota. Why I always go to say
Johnson.
There you go. I always go to say Fanning.
What's the difference?
And like no shade to the Dakotas. I love them both, but still. Anyway, so he's good at that kind of stuff. Then there's K-pop Demon Hunters, a show that I haven't seen, but have seen a lot of. Just on social and through kids and everything else.
I watched the trailer for it, like thinking, because my friend has kids and he was raving about it. And I had friends who said that it was amazing. And I watched the trailer for it and I'm like, I can't. I just don't get it. I see why people do get it, but it just made no sense to me.
I have a 3-year-old, and so he's like too young to consume this. But when his grandparents watch him, sometimes they've let him watch it because he'll ask. And then they're just like, I don't know what's a yes or a no on Netflix for kids. So they've let him watch it. And so he really likes it because it's just like bright lights and singing and dancing around. So it checks a lot of boxes for him, but I hope I haven't let him consume like an inappropriate type of media by watching this.
Probably have. Other celebrities, Walton Goggins, whose name I love. Walton Goggins.
And I'm telling you, much like the word frog, when you look at Walton Goggins, you're like, that's a Walton Goggins. Like, that's the right name for that person.
Pam Anderson with her comeback in The Naked Gun. We got Charlie Sheen. Great. Who cares?
Yep.
There's some interesting ones. What about TV shows?
Okay. The Hunting Wives was a big one that was searched for this year. And that was kind of like this campy sort of lesbian sapphic hit that took over, and it's kind of about like Republican women who are, secretly like they're closeted. And it stars Malin Ackerman. It was this like runaway hit. Also, Brittany Snow is in it, and it got this cult following. There were a lot of memes about how terrible the wigs were on the show. They are so bad that it became good. There was, I think, a lot of talk about The White Lotus, of course, Walton Goggins being one of the stars of that series. That is like a cultural touchstone that happens every year. People wait for the release to come out, and even every location where they have the White Lotus season, that sees this massive travel boom. So people all started deciding they're going to go to Southeast Asia. And now I think the new season that's coming up is going to be in the south of France. Not that they need help with tourism, but yeah, it's a huge show.
Of course, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. At the commercial break, you were raving about it. That was one of them.
I can't stop talking about it. It's been added to my reality TV disorder. And I didn't think when I first started watching it that I would necessarily like it. But because I've already been like microdosed by Mormon wives via the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I took a chance on these ones. And man, it's really good, David. You have to get into this show.
I'm trying. I just don't understand it because I'm not on TikTok, but whatever. The general terms, this is what really interested me. Labubu was on there, and I remember when one of my guests came on the show like 8 months ago saying, I'm getting a Labubu. She's the stand-up comedian. And I'm like, what is a Labubu? Now they're everywhere. It's like, what is it? There's a bias you have when you finally become aware of something. You see them everywhere. For example, when I got a motorcycle about 10 years ago, I turned to my friend and I said, everyone's buying motorcycles right now. I see them on the road everywhere. And he's like, no. Now that you have one, you see one. And these little like dollies, they're sort of like Teletubby-esque that people have on their purses, on their keychains.
Yep.
Now that I know what they are, I see them on the trains. I see them on the streets. I see them everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're the 2025 version of troll dolls.
Yeah.
And they're highly collectible. And we kind of live in an era of like merch and collector's items right now. And K-pop and like K-pop adjacent sort of, from Korean beauty to everything else has like had a big moment, as we were saying, with the K-pop Demon Hunters. So I feel like this is sort of part of that world, aesthetically speaking. And they're massive. They're so successful. And I forget which, I want to say Warner Brothers off the top of my head, but it could be another, Sony Pictures. I think that so Warner or Sony just did like a bajillion-dollar deal to make a Labubu movie, and they've optioned it to have like more than one. So they're clearly building a Labubu franchise now.
I love how you start with the premise first and work backwards to the plot. Like, who are the Labubus? They got to figure that out when they write this movie.
I don't own any of these, and my son's too young, so I've missed out, but I have friends who live in other countries that find it hard to get them. And we have Pop Mart here in Toronto where I live. And so they'll message me and say, like, can you get these for my kids? And so I know a little bit that they're part of the Monsters family. That's the world that they operate in. So I do think that there is a Labubu world. Whether or not that's going to make a decent enough plotline for a franchise, I doubt it matters. It's probably still going to be a box office smash.
Other words on the list, the handsome mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani.
Yes.
I wonder if people were just Googling how to pronounce his name, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe they were, but also I think he's so good at leveraging social, and he's so good. He's one of those politicians that has figured out that we're living in an attention economy, and he has gone with it, and it has served him very well. I mean, clearly he's the new mayor of New York.
And he stays on point, and his press conference with Trump at the White House was a sight to be seen, with Trump I
loved it.
Staring at him with great admiration. He's really taken the country, whether you like him or not. Another one on the list, and I love this because I think this list was US-centric, tariffs. I'm just imagining some American who doesn't know how tariffs work, just Googling the word to figure it out because they hear it in the news so much.
They're like, wait a minute, I'm being told these are good, but actually everything's getting exponentially more expensive. Maybe I better understand how this works. And then there you go.
Maybe that should be the 2025 Merriam-Webster word of the year, tariffs.
Yeah, probably.
Any other things on the list that you liked, or should we move on?
The only thing I was going to say that I really did like was Bad Bunny, because he was also like Spotify's #1 streamed artist. He was, I think, the third most Googled artist in terms of music and audio. And of course, we're going to see him coming up at the Super Bowl. It was like 2025 really was the year of Bad Bunny. The one thing that I found confusing, and I always find confusing about Spotify Wrapped, is that he was my top artist that I listened to this year.
My top artist was someone I didn't even know, but I'm on a lot of shared playlists with my girlfriend. And so I worry if like Chapel Roan was on mine, and I don't hate her. I just don't like her. And I've never played one of her songs. But then it says, you've played Chapel Roan 40 times. And I'm like, maybe it was the shared playlist that set us off here. Or maybe I'm just outing myself as a secret fan. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I mean, she's great, and Bad Bunny's great, and I've definitely listened to him. I was like most listened to artist though. Like I know the artist that I click on over and over again, and he for me wasn't one of them. It also Spotify Wrapped, and now it's like a Spotify Wrapped truther moment, but I don't care. They said that one of my top albums was Taylor Swift's Life of a Showgirl. I listened to it once just to understand all the conversation around it, and then never again. So I kind of call BS on the Spotify Wrapped algorithm. I don't know what they're using, but it's not working for me.
Yeah, it's either not true or shared playlists, probably a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who was your real #1 artist? That artist that when you saw, you said, yes, that was me.
I think it was Fred again for me.
Okay, well, mine was obviously Tina Turner, because who else would it be?
Obviously, it's Tina Turner for you. When I see you, you scream Private Dancer.
Dancer for money. Do what you want me to do.
Absolutely.
#1, we did karaoke at my house the other night at the risk of derailing here, and I kept on telling everyone at my house, you can pick any song you want in Tina Turner's catalog. Everyone was mad at me.
Okay, I did karaoke for my birthday, and that's why I just got so excited when you said that, because I was going to say, what were your favorite karaoke songs? And now I know that it's Tina Turner.
When we come back, the shocking docuseries about Sean Combs, or Diddy, and the lawsuit against them, and how Netflix may or may not have covered all their bases. We're here with Caitlin Green, media personality. Check her out on the Jan Arden podcast, where she is co-host. We'll be back. The docu-series in a minute. What a great before the break tease, he said.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
New York, Berlin, London, Paris, kick so slick and fresh, so lavish, never roll fake, hard to break like a habit, but if it's at stake, then girl, I gotta have it.
Where David Cooper applies NASA-level precision to decoding mixed signals from both space and significant others. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
The war between Fiddy and Diddy, and a new docuseries called Sean Combs, The Reckoning on Netflix that goes over Puff Diddy. Is that the way you say his name? I'm not even sure.
I think he's just Diddy now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Caitlin Green is here, media personality. Check her out on the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, welcome back to the show. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. I have to set aside some viewing time. As per our previous conversation, I've been really busy with all my Mormon wives content.
Mm-hmm.
But now that that's wrapped up, the reunion has aired, I can now consume this, and I'm extremely excited about it.
There are kind of wild allegations surrounding this. For example, Diddy hired this videographer to capture his life, but no contract, didn't pay the guy. And now he's like, oh, you can't release that film. Well, if you have someone taking video of you and you have no contract and you don't pay them for the video, that video belongs to them, not you, even if they were in your house.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm an amateur legal expert in the sense that I know nothing about the law.
The thing with Diddy is I feel like for a long time I've known that he was objectively evil, but I didn't know he was dumb. And then this happened and I was like, oh, maybe you're also a bit stupid or like delusional, insulated by your own like minions. And so you think you're infallible and that you own this footage. I don't know. But if he thought that Netflix wasn't going to do their due diligence on rights for these videos, if he thought 50 Cent, who has hated him for decades, wasn't going to like come correct with the legalese on this, he was sorely mistaken. So exactly, this is why you always pay your videographer. This is why you always get the contracts. And this is also why if you're a really bad person who's engaging in a ton of illicit behavior, maybe don't have your whole life filmed. Like, it's bizarre that he wanted to have every second of his life documented the way that he did, but he did.
This is a company, Netflix. They've done documentaries about Scientology. They know how to cover their legal bases when doing something. I'll say allegedly because I don't want to get sued. If you just say the word allegedly, you can't get sued, right? Is that how that works, Caitlin?
Yeah, that's how that works, I think. I don't know. But yeah, 50 Cent hates him so much. And I think, to me, obviously everyone knows Diddy's a piece of crap, and this is just more kind of like fuel to that fire. And for me, the takeaway is that 50 Cent is one of the best celebrities going. I feel so lucky to live in the same entertainment timeline as him, because when he has a feud with someone, he goes all in a way that the rest of us members of the proletariat only wish we could, because he is incredibly rich and powerful and he is petty beyond measure. So he decided that he was going to do a series of media appearances to promote this docuseries. He specifically chose ABC News because he knew that that was the news that is carried in jail.
Interesting. So he wanted Diddy to see it.
He wants Diddy and his inmates to see this and to be able to watch it, because he is just dunking on him in this interview the whole friggin' time.
Wow.
It's incredible.
What an amazingly petty thing to do.
It's so good.
The Diddy-Fitty feud, like how would it compare to, for example, I don't know, Drake and Kendrick Lamar?
It's more long-standing. It's like more old school hip hop. Like it's less, built into songs. It's less reflected in like bars per se than it is in the two of them just being like big media moguls who would have their own businesses. And also very different in the sense that 50 Cent alleges that what happened was Diddy initially, when he started becoming famous, would offer to take him shopping. This was a thing he did. He would reach out to other male artists and say he wants to take him shopping. He would invite them to party with him. And if you said no to letting him take you shopping, if you said no to attending his parties enough time, he would take it up with you. He would confront you about it. And 50 Cent would air this out very publicly. Like, I'm not going shopping with you. I'm not partying with you. I know exactly what that means and I'm not into it.
Are there any other behind the scene things with Fiddy and Diddy that you know about?
That's the main one I've seen him speak about, but like they've always had issues with each other, because 50 Cent thinks that he is a shady character. I think he's a big figure. Like they're both big figures in the New York hip hop scene and always have been. And now there's all these allegations connecting him to the death of Biggie and the death of Tupac. And I think those things were all well known within the community. So I just generally feel like 50 Cent has known for a long time that he's a POS.
Okay. Well, it's a 4-hour documentary. I guess take a whole weekend to watch it. I don't know. People seem to like it.
Yeah, it's getting great reviews. Everyone's very happy. They think that, 50 Cent's just doing the Lord's work, and I agree.
All right. It's Crystaltoe, which I recently found out is not a word. I thought it was a word.
You did?
My girlfriend makes fun of me because she loves Christmas. The holiday time. Is it a time for strange, inappropriate gifts? A time for the worst of our family members to behave on their worst? Mm-hmm. Anything excited that you are about? That wasn't English. Anything you're excited about for the holiday? Anything you're excited about for the holidays?
I am very excited. So I've kind of co-opted into my husband's family, and they do a very traditional, like wholesome Christmas. And so we do a horse-drawn sleigh ride. We do pond ice skating.
Wow.
Like they read the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas on Christmas Eve to all the kids in a circle. Like all that stuff starts to happen. So I've really gone into that mode, and I like it. And now that we have a 3-year-old child, I have become much more of a Christmas elf. Like you probably can't.
I'm a Jew, Caitlin. We didn't celebrate Christmas. This is like my worst nightmare you're describing.
Okay, it's out of focus behind me, but if you look, David, I'm pointing to Elf on a Shelf.
Yes, I'm aware that you put an elf on a shelf, and that is related to somehow the birth of our Lord and Savior.
Directly to my right is a Christmas tree. So like I do look forward to all of this, but what I really do look forward to as well is the number of people who air out their grievances with their insane families around the holidays, and then thus enters Reddit, the Am I the A-hole subreddit. This is the gift that keeps on giving. It's Christmas all the time there when it comes to radio content, because everyone just goes there and says like, oh my God, this family member is so awful, and here's why. Is it just me? And at Christmas time, like your worst family members really do take up all the oxygen in the room. So I want to know your thoughts on this. A man was sharing this on the Am I the A-hole subreddit, and he said that his mother-in-law is so obsessed with Christmas that she wants to have her gifts be the big star of all the family Christmases for them. So she would hide his son's favorite toys that he would get from Santa so that he would play with the ones that she gave him instead.
Of course she's the jerk there. I mean, that's like, doesn't even go without saying. Why do people even need to ask this stuff?
I know. I think they just want the satisfaction of hearing thousands of strangers tell them that their mother-in-law is a psycho. That's probably it.
As a Jew, it's like someone who didn't do this growing up. It seems like it's like all this build up, and then if it doesn't go perfectly, people are so upset. It's so much pressure for it to go well. It seems so stressful. I don't know.
It can be very stressful, and you do have to opt out of the parts of it that are stressful for you. And you have to opt out of the family members and the family dynamics that ruin Christmas for you. And that seems to be roundly the recommendation, even from some like therapists and psychiatrists who chimed in on this thread. They're like, boundaries should be well maintained at the holidays. And because she's already saying, he said no gifts for the kids this year. We don't want any gifts for the kids this year. They just want to control the narrative by saying don't buy them anything so you can't go crazy about it. And she said, well, then I'm not going to come to Christmas. And then you get to turn around and say, well, we'll really miss you this year. And that was what everyone's advice was. So just like leave those crazy people out. And I did a Jewish Christmas one year of sorts. I went to have Christmas dinner at a hotel because they serve Christmas dinners there sometimes. So I went to have Christmas dinner at a hotel here in Toronto.
That's not a Jewish Christmas. A Jewish Christmas is Chinese food in a movie, Caitlin. You should know that.
Okay, but I missed the Chinese food, but I did go to a movie.
And?
So then we left dinner and we went to go see The Wrestler, the festive classic of The Wrestler, starring Mickey Rourke.
Nothing screams Christmas more than The Wrestler. Can we derail for a second here while you explain to me eggnog? Because I've tried it and I cannot stand it. And one Christmas I was hanging out with another Jewish friend and there was a carton of eggnog in the fridge. And her and I were like taking little sips out of cups. And it was like the scene at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey with the apes, like, you know, with the obelisk, like, you know, not understanding it. And we were just like, what is this? It tastes awful. How can you drink that?
So you weren't drinking it with alcohol in it. You were just drinking it, like raw dogging it out of the carton?
Raw dog in the eggnog.
Okay, well, that's on you. Because it's alcoholic pancake batter is what it is. And it should be enjoyed as such. You have to fill it to the tippy top with dark rum. It has to be very boozy. And you do have to have lots of ice and lots of spices. And then it's tolerable. But yeah, on its own, it's like a thick, viscous kind of like milkshakey adjacent quality thing. And the homemade stuff is way better than the store-bought. So no one's really going to go to the trouble. But if you ever have someone offer you homemade eggnog, it's way better. It's like fluffier and lighter. But you just need a lot of rum. And dark rum. I don't want white rum coming near my eggnog.
All right. Still not convinced, but maybe a little more convinced. Check out Caitlin Green on the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, always a joy having you on the show. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Children, what if those little chaos demons aren't just making a mess when they play around, but actually showing signs of young algorithmic genius? Well, after the break, kids young as 4 can crack complex problems in a lab. And you know, child psychologists way back when who researched kids may have actually underestimated them. Details of this new study in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Cooper's Law tells us that the complexity of a relationship is inversely proportional to its explanation. You're listening to The Last Show with David Cooper.
Children's behavior looks random, chaotic, but there's new research that suggests that beneath the mess is real structured algorithmic thinking. Kids as young as 4 solve complex problems with surprising logic. So if you think kids are just chaos demons, you might be misunderstanding how they think. I'm here with someone who's done research in this area. They are a psychology researcher at UC Berkeley. Alex Yang is my guest. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be on the show.
So, an early look at kids' logical or problem-solving abilities from, I don't know, the 1960s or 70s. What were we thinking that was wrong back then? Or what has new research revealed to show things to be a little different?
Yeah. It appears that what people used to, or what psychologists used to think is that children go through several stages of development. And then during these stages, their behavior gradually gets more structured, more effective, more quote unquote adult-like. And during these early stages, say that Piaget mentioned 4 stages when it comes to a particular task, situation. During the early stages, say that when children were younger than 7 years old, it was proposed that they were not using anything logical, structured. They couldn't reliably solve a problem that requires like higher order logic abilities. And that's just not what we experience in daily life when we interact with children. And also that's something that we wanted to test it out in this study.
So tell me about what you did experience in the lab. What was the experiment where you got young children to do some tasks that involved logic and problem solving, and how did they do?
Yeah. So we recruited younger and older children. So we wanted to see how, not longitudinally, but cross-sectionally, how they develop. How are the 4-year-olds different than the 9-year-olds, say? So we recruited children from 4 to 9 years old, and then we asked them to do a very complicated task. It's a sorting task, but what makes it difficult is that you cannot see the height of the stuff that you were sorting. So it's basically like, you have to sort, like we told them it was 6 animated bunnies just to keep it fun, but they cannot see the height of the bunny. They can only see their different colored shoes. And there's no point remembering which shoe goes with which bunny on each trial because I just randomized them. And we have a cool cover story that children really like. And most children really like helping bunnies, so that worked out pretty well. And what we see was that children, even as young as 4 years old, they can use structured, effective behavior that resemble some of the very complicated and math-proven, bulletproof strategies that adults, even computer scientists, use. Like, for those of you who are familiar in the field, selection sort and shaker sort, very effective sorting strategies.
Without getting too technical, I have a background in computer science. That's what I
cool.
did, before I went into radio. And sorting algorithms, or the process in which you sort things, imagine numbers or things with a certain height, that's like the gold standard for learning about algorithms. I'm surprised that kids that young were able to kind of figure this out on their own.
Yeah, we were also very surprised. And that's why we tried to figure out, what exactly were they doing, or what kind of ability was required for them to be able to achieve this. And why was this sort of very structured, efficient behavior previously undiscovered by psychologists? So the approach we took was like also what I do normally in my job. I build computational models and try to infer which strategies children are using. And this is not very easy given that children's behavior, it is by nature noisy and exploratory, and they might not seem like on the surface that they're doing anything structured. But underlying all that noise, you can find that they're clearly the people who are using strategy following a certain logic, and that logic beneath all the math on the surface is very efficient and math proven.
So what happens when you monitored a kid who kind of discovered these ways to sort objects? They just were playing around, and then all of a sudden they figured it out?
Yeah, I think some of them played around. We had 6 trials, so they had to sort 6 group of bunnies, different group of bunnies. At the first, maybe they were just trying stuff out. They were taking a very long time to figure stuff out, or maybe they were getting 1 or 2 bunnies in the wrong place. But toward the end, they seem like they're converging their behavior to a different kind of strategies, or it's noticeable that they're spending less time on it. They're taking less clicks for them to figuring out a particular ordering of the bunnies and stuff. Yeah.
So at what point do kids go from like chaos behavior? For example, if you give a kid a bag of blocks, I guaranteed you that bag is going to get dumped out on the floor chaotically, to more like structured algorithm, problem-solving style thinking. Like, what's going on in a kid's brain when they make that transition?
Yeah, so I guess this is also one of the points that we made in the paper is that previously when we think about structured behavioral algorithmic thinking, these skills are very important to us even as kids. When we do math homework, when we do science project, that's very important. So normally what we try to do, or as educators, what we try to do is that we try to give kids instructions, we let them imitate us, and let them do homeworks. But what we find here is that kids can actually do it without instruction, without demonstration. So what I would like to say is maybe we just need to give them time and space to explore. And underneath all that seemingly messy exploration, they're actually trying to figure out a natural and effective way to solve the problem.
Well, to that end, why do you think kids rarely show this? Like, if I've spent some time with a 4-year-old, and occasionally I do, it's not my favorite thing to do, no offense to anyone with kids, they don't show this behavior on a regular basis, even though it would appear they're capable of it. Why do you think it's not shown very often?
Yeah, I think also one of the things that we noticed that were really interesting was that there was a replication of this study in adults, and then adults obviously use more complicated strategies and they solve it faster. But what we also show is that for a given adult participant, after they discovered or used one kind of strategy, they kind of just stuck with it. They're like selection sort all the way through the end of the experiment. But that's not what kids do. Kids sometimes they can discover and use selection sort, and then they switch to a different sorting algorithm, and then they do something else, and then they come back to selection sort or whatever. It seems like because of how exploratory or because of how not goal-driven they are at a task during the experiment, they can exhibit behaviors that are, well, some people may call unadult-like or unstructured, but actually they're just switching between different kinds of structures, and they feel like that might or may not work.
When kids face a hard problem-solving task, do you think adults intervene too quickly or overteach or coddle, and that prevents kids from using their problem-solving abilities that they already have?
According to this study that we just did, I think yes, and even during the experiment, you see that some parents get very, very nervous when their children were not performing quote unquote very well according to their standard, and usually we just say, like, let's just give them time. Let's just sit here uncomfortably in our little bubble, and then let's see how our kids do. And then normally they come through with extraordinary success. So.
What would you want to say to parents, caregivers, teachers who interact with kids based on your study? Like, just let them play, let them take their time to solve problems. Don't intervene the second they get something wrong. Would that be the big takeaway?
I think the big takeaway is first as educators or as parents. I'm not a parent, so I cannot say that, but let's try to be patient and try to give it a little bit more time and space. But also, let's try to give kids more credit. Let's try to believe them more. Let's try to believe that when they say they can solve it, they can actually solve it. And they can solve it pretty well using pretty effective methods.
Alex, thanks for sharing your research with me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Alex Yang is a psychology researcher at UC Berkeley. That's a wrap on the show. That's a wrap on the night. Don't forget about the Last Show podcast on our website. You can find out more details. The address, www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Or just search for David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. We'll pop up. On our show, you can catch nights you missed, interviews you loved again, or some of our bonus content you won't hear on the radio program. I'm David Cooper. We'll be back tomorrow night, and this was not the first show, I promise.
My name is Jordan, and I'd like to invite you to join me on The Canadian Gothic, a podcast covering stories of Canadian crime, mystery, and the offbeat. The Canadian Gothic blends the spirit of late-night talk radio with the depth of a documentary film and applies that approach to both developing stories and historical cases. So if you're drawn to the dark, mysterious, and offbeat, search for and subscribe to The Canadian Gothic wherever you find podcasts.
You are listening to Canadian Gothic.